Since I was 19 years old, I had health insurance, life insurance. I had a career. You know, I was in the Air Force. I was in the military, United States military. I was in the Air Force. So we get $400,000 in life insurance standard. That's going to go to your family if something happens to you. Automatic $400,000. At least at the time, I don't know what it is now, but we used to get $400,000 life insurance policy. Everybody who was in had a $400,000 life insurance policy that we didn't pay into out of our pocket. It was just standard. It was what it was. Health insurance, we had TRICARE. So we had health insurance automatic. We didn't have to pay into it. It was already set up. Doctor appointments, medical appointments, like dentist stuff, anything, they made those appointments for you every year annually. You didn't have to set up any appointments unless it was outside of your annual checkup. They kept us checked out because we were war fighters. So in case we had to go to war, in case we ever had to deploy, we have to stay trained and ready. This was just the standard for the military across the board, right? So I never thought about when I had to do my annual dental because I would get notified, hey, it's time for you to get your dental checkup if it's been a year or however long. Now, if you had something going on, you had a bad cavity or something like that, you couldn't deploy like that, they wouldn't take you to war with your teeth messed up. So your teeth was always good, or at least in process of becoming good. You had free health care, so if you ever felt sick or needed some medicine or whatever it was provided for you free of charge. You know, including things just like I was saying, like say with like the life insurance thing, like it wasn't something you had to really set up. It was already, I mean, you would say who the beneficiary was, but these things came standard. And when I used to come home from the military, I used to see people that I knew not have health insurance, not have life insurance, not have a career where you get paid the same thing every 2 weeks, regardless of for how many hours you did, right? Like, because you might get paid by the hour, and if you did 40 hours this week, but they only give you on the schedule 25 hours the next week, then your check was affected by that. And I would see people I knew affected by how many hours of work they put in. Now, of course, if you do a lot more hours at work, then you get a bigger check. But my check didn't really change. It was kind of the same check, and if it did change, it only went up because of either I got relocated to another city or a country even, and they would pay a cost of living adjustment, or they would pay more for rent in that area or BAH in that area or whatever. And also, they gave me a stipend for food. I mean, all these things was in my check, so I still had to manage the money that I was given. But I also had a career tracked, right? Like where I can say, okay, I'm gonna start at this amount as a Airman Basic. I started as an E1, Airman Basic. So start as an E1 and you could work your way up to E9. And so you had a plan to take you from one place to another place. And if you wanted to become an officer, you get your degree, you can put in to try to petition to become an officer. And if you get accepted, you know, you can become an officer and all of that. But I didn't come into a job, say if I went and I got a job at, say, at a dollar store, and there may be 2 positions or 3 positions where you're either a clerk, stalker, manager, something like that. I don't know. I don't know the different options you would have at a dollar store. But we had a lot of career progression, and there were people telling you constantly This is what you're going to need to get to this next step. This is what you're going to need to get to this next step. And so these things is already lined up for you. When you come in, all you got to do is almost like shut up in color, really, like, because it was all given to you. And when I would come home and I would talk to family members, friends, associates, or whatever, I would find out that a lot of these people didn't have health insurance. They didn't have life insurance. And after, you have these things for so long in the military, they become standard. You expect everyone to have this. And so then you find out, oh man, these people are just living. They don't have a career path. They're constantly like jumping around different little jobs. They're doing a little odd and end things here and there. And you're trying to figure out, like, what are you doing exactly? Like, I have a retirement plan in 20 years. Like, you had a retirement plan, so retirement was figured out. And you were really just going through the motions that were already lined out for you. And all you had to do was just follow the guidelines. It was really, really a no-brainer. You really didn't have to think. That's kind of how they designed it, so that you didn't really have to even think too much. And so I used to wonder, what do regular people do? Without all of these things lined up and you have to do everything for yourself and all of that, what do they do? And then I would see people who was in their 50s still doing entry-level positions and jobs and things like that on the civilian side, like as civilians, and they would be perfectly happy or perfectly fine. But I would always be wondering, like, what's the end goal here? What's the plan? Like, you knew if you came into the military, you can do 20 years, retire, and then you can pick up your second job, or take up a second job to coast for another maybe 10 years. Because let's say I was 19 when I came in, so I would have been 39. I would have been the same age that I am now, retired from the Air Force. Then you had the VA stuff, and actually I didn't know much about the VA stuff, but you would think, okay, I'm gonna get a retirement check. You get your retirement check, and it wouldn't be, and we really weren't sure how much it was gonna be, but we knew we'll be getting a retirement check, and let's say that retirement check might pay the mortgage or pay for some cars or whatever. Maybe it could pay for your lifestyle. We never really knew, because we didn't know how much the retirement check was going to be for us at the time of retirement. But we knew we was going to be getting a check for the rest of our life. And then many people were saying, oh, well, we can start our second career, whether or not you want to be a teacher, you want to be a whatever. You want to still work with the government. Like, so I was avionics when I first joined. So Lockheed Martin, NASA, all of them had like the kind of planes that I was trained to work on. Pratt Whitney, a lot of these companies had these kind of planes, and they were fairly decent salaries because I was an avionics technician. I can still go do that. They still send me emails requesting me to come do some avionics technician stuff. It's hilarious. But I knew I could make a decent wage doing that, and you could be retired. And so you would see these examples throughout from people on base who were prior enlisted, retired, now they're working on these planes, and you could see their families and their houses and how everything was set up. So you had an idea of what life was going to be like and what it was, I don't want to say supposed to be like, but like you had an idea of what a functioning person in society would look like. And so when I would go back to my old neighborhoods or whatever like that, and I'm just seeing people just winging it. Well, what looks like they just winging it, right? Like they're constantly struggling, not really changing. People still had the same job from high school, and they were like, 48 years old, and they're still working at the same grocery store and stuff like that. And there's nothing wrong with that, especially if you're moving up into management and things like that. And at the time, I just didn't understand. I was trying to figure out what people were doing. And it scared me to get out of the Air Force or get out of the military, because everybody who I knew who got out of the military was like, don't get out, stay in, or we're struggling out here, don't come out here with me. And you know, and the other examples for the people who never got out or who were never in, they were like not. Some people were doing good things, you know. Some people were professors, but not very many. Like the examples of those people was far and few in between. So I didn't have a lot of knowledge base to like really be a full-fledged civilian, to have confidence that I was gonna move into a certain situation that was gonna be equal to or better than what I was doing in the military. So for a moment, I like just did a bunch of research, and that's when I just kind of realized that part of the reason that I was even seeing the world as it has to be this way. I have to have health insurance. I have to have life insurance, and all of those things are amazing. And yes, you need to have those things, okay? You definitely need to have those things. But the average person out here that I was interacting with on the private side, on the civilian side, they did not have those things as priorities. They did not care about those things whatsoever. And I had them for so long that they have become a standard. Like, what do you mean you don't have dental insurance? Like, what do you mean? What is that? You know? And I remember paying those co-pays as a civilian and thinking like, man, this is crazy high. Like, I don't like this, you know? But because I never had to pay co-pays, I never had to pay for anything. Surgeries were free. I never had to pay for health insurance. But, you know, I definitely wanted it. And I would see people, even GS employees or federal employees who this their first job working for the government. They were not prior service or whatever, and they were opting out of health coverage, and was like, man, oh, that's too expensive. I ain't paying for that, and they just gonna not have none, and that kind of thing. Like they would try to opt out of it, and I was just like, man, this is crazy, because you know, I know a lot of people like for us, like if you came out of the military, you're looking for a job with benefits. Like you just automatically thinking that this should be standard. But yeah, so at the end of the day, just realize that without proper direction or without some sort of direction, people don't even know what they should be doing. They have no real understanding of what they should be doing, so they just live. And guess what? That works too. That absolutely works. That absolutely works. I was surprised to see how people who just lived, right? They still was living. They was still living. They was still living. Bartender until you 70. Still living good, or still, you know, remotely happy. Like, you know, it's different levels of money. It's different levels of whatever. But those people were still getting their family members Christmas presents, and, you know, still got a car and still was paying for their rent or their mortgage and things like that. They were still making it. And it was an eye-opening like experience for me to see that like later in life, like to see, oh, you can just, I mean, I want to say you can just wing it, but you know, you can, there's multiple ways to get to happiness. And of course, even what I was thinking was the military process, or the things that I would see as like military life or federal government service or life, was actually like the low to me. Like I was like, at a minimum, I have to at least live like this, you know, as a minimum. To me, that was the low. That wasn't the rich people life, you know, the jet setters who had their private jets and things like that. I'm thinking, at a minimum, you can't live below this and be happy. You can't possibly, but you absolutely can. Anyway, I just want to come in here and talk about that because it was coming up in conversation. And I was like, man, you know, when I talk to some of these college students about this or that, and because you don't know, I'm an accountant, so I taught a lot of different people about different kind of backgrounds and things that they plan on doing, and career stuff and stuff like that. So I realized that in talking to some of these people who might be fresh out of college, or or just have never really had a job, and now they're trying to figure things out, and they're trying to take their future serious. As I talk to these people, I realize that, well, honestly, most of them don't even understand what happens in the military, because I'm telling them like, oh, I was at 20 years old, or when I was 22, whatever their age is, I was already in Germany or whatever like that. I was, so I never had the broke college experience, living in the dorms and they ain't got no money. I've been getting paid. I was in the dorms in the military, but we had cars and, clothes and shoes and, all the latest technology and stuff like that. And I could, send a couple dollars home to my mama if every now and then or whatever. Like, I could do those things. I could buy plane tickets. I wasn't on, like, I didn't depend on nobody. I was independent, but I wasn't the broke college dorm experience. And so, and I had health insurance and life insurance and all of that. So when I'm telling them, oh yeah, I had a $400,000 policy at 19 years old, they're like, wow. Like, and this was, I'm 39, so this is 2004, 2004 or 2005. Nope, 2004. Yeah, 2004, So I had all of those things back then. It's crazy to think now. But anyway, I just wanted to come on here and talk to you guys about that. Right now you're watching Casino Is the Name. Please like, share, comment, and subscribe, and we out. There are hedge fund managers making $1 million an hour. It's crazy, right? It's money everywhere. It's money in everything. I want to help you. Start your business today. Come join my royal family. Subscribe to Casino Is the Name.